Hello and welcome back to another episode of Transport Fever 2. In this video, we're going to go over some of the changes that I made off camera, just simply involving upgrading some of the bus networks across some of the cities. And then after we go through that, we'll detail some of the bigger things that were placed off camera, and then I think we'll go through our lines and look at adjusting some rates, since we haven't done that in a while, and with new vehicles coming out, some of those numbers are bound to change. So first and foremost, the city of Downey, we completely redid the bus network, added a ton of different lines across the city, and if we come into our traffic layer, you can see pretty much all of the traffic and gridlock that we had previously has, for the most part, been cleared out entirely. And so if we just click open our line statistics tab, you can sort of see where some of the loops are. So we have a loop in this upper area of the city, we have another loop that covers the middle portion of the city, and then we have another one that sort of dips into the area across the river, and then this portion of the city. You can also see maybe just a few other lines that we have. So we have a line that sort of loops around this side of the city to connect up to the train station much easier. And then maybe another line, I'm not sure how many we ended up adding through here, but all of these stations are connected pretty well, and they all center around these bus stations here. So with this area being our sort of hub of operations in Downey, we will come back to this and detail it, make it look a little nicer, give it a whole nice look to it. But for now, luckily we have our buses going, and that has cleared up most of the traffic. I think really what it was a lot of this didn't have access to bus lines, and so that was creating a lot of problems with people traveling within the city to essentially just take this road up into this area. So anyway, moving on from Downey, in Mesa, we just pretty much adjusted the location of some of the bus lines. So I believe we added this one out in this leg of the city, and then moved these out a block or two so they still encompass a good portion of all the buildings in the city. Mesa hasn't really outgrown the bus network that we've placed for it quite a while ago, which is fine, but we will have to continue staying on top of it. And then another big area that we changed off camera in San Jose was this interchange here. It was working pretty well, and then we ended up with some traffic issues, but we were able to solve that just by simply extending this road all the way to this intersection, because I think cars were queuing up at the traffic light, and that was starting to back up onto the highway. But we have that under control now. Unfortunately, that does mean that our larger road that we had needed to bridge over this road, but I think it still works out pretty well, and all of the connections still do exist, so I think this will all work out in the end. And then as for another city where we did a lot of restructuring of the bus network was Winston-Salem. We didn't really touch the existing loop that we had because I felt that it was pretty well established. It was pretty much all of this sort of area of the city, and all this new development heading out towards the highway is what wasn't covered. So we simply just added a new loop. So here you can see a summary of that. It does overlap with a few of the other bus stops that we have on our other loop, but I think that's okay. And so the attempt with this was to cut down on traffic on this road, as this road continues to get more and more traffic building up on it. And I think pretty soon we're going to have to take some more serious measures to get that sorted out. But for now, I think just extending the bus network in Winston-Salem was enough to pretty much keep it alive for a little bit longer. And so I believe that should be all for the changes we made off camera. We are still playing around with our road connections up to Sacramento, because if we come here and take a look, we still have some traffic problems. Now it seems to be getting out of Sacramento instead of getting into it. So perhaps maybe it's a bus network issue in Sacramento. Maybe we just need another connection into Modesto. Maybe one that comes off of this road and bridges over and connects to this area of the city. We'll see what comes out of that, which we will get to in this video, but I still think getting in and out of Sacramento is going to prove to be quite difficult, especially as we continue to move on with this series. So anyway, continuing on, back here in Downey, let's come to our bus stations and figure out how we're going to make this area look nice. It is in a bit of an awkward location, and it might be a little bit hard to develop it, but we can at least spruce it up so it's a little bit nicer than what it currently is. So first, I think we're going to remove all of the buildings surrounding this, even on the roads around the lot. I think we just don't want any buildings on this specific plot. I think we could, well, I don't really like these buildings here. They really start to encroach on the building itself. We'll keep these ones at the corner because some of them are skyscrapers and probably pretty essential to the city's population. And maybe even this road we can just simplify into a curved road, just so we get a little bit more space between the road and the actual building itself. And so we can get this road built in just like this, and the slope isn't too terrible. While it is steep, it's nothing too unrealistic. So then the next thing we'll do is grab our assets brush and we'll get rid of all the trees on this lot just so we can see what we're doing. Next, we will flatten everything to the level of the bus stations. We'll do it pretty broadly at first, and then I think what we're going to do is place down a collision tile, or actually we'll do that at the end once we're done doing all the details, just so we can stop buildings from building along this edge of the road and over here and everywhere else along the lot. And so the first thing that we did here was add a nice hedge fence around these buildings, since, especially because they're two placed next to each other, we had that sort of ugly connection between them, and the hedge fencing just really helps to line up and border these buildings. So then I think the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add some trees into the middle here. I'm not exactly sure which kind of trees we want. Something like this might be a little too big and not really fit. We have these, but they're kind of small. And so I think we'll go with these trees here, as they're sort of a smallish, medium-sized tree. And having these in here doesn't look too terrible. So we can get, I believe, 5 of these evenly spaced right across the front like so. That doesn't look too terrible. The trees aren't really overshadowing the buildings themselves. And there's really not much more that we would really want to do here. Alright, so just to finish off this area, we added this little sort of like billboard advertisement sign sort of right at the entrance. I think that would be something that would make sense here, and really I think that's all that we'll be doing in this area. So let's just come in, we'll grab a collision tile, and so this looks to be about the amount of space that we want it to take up. So we'll lower it all the way underground, right click to confirm it, and then if we hit play, we should no longer have buildings spawning on this area of the lot. So then all that's left to do is to just come through and smooth out some of these edges, and then once we're done with that, we can move on to some other areas. Alright, so this is what we'll leave this off as. It looks pretty good. It now has its own designated area of the city. We didn't really just try to fit it onto a side street, but everything seems to be going well. All of our bus stops seem to be pretty empty besides this one, which is somewhat surprising, but I think that's just everyone trying to get to the train station. If we take a look at our train station, we actually have a ton of people waiting now. I think now with all the extra access to public transportation, our train stations are starting to get a little bit overloaded, but that is something we will get to very soon. So coming back over to Sacramento, I want to start getting a handle on all of this, the issues that we've got going on here, trying to leave the city and everything going on with that. So I think first let's upgrade our bus loops and maybe change the location of this bus station. If we do anything with it, I think we'll just connect it to this road here, but let's redo our bus stops and our bus loops, and then I think from there we can then start to assess what connections need to be made. So we'll just pause so that everything doesn't freak out as soon as we do this. We'll come back, grab a building. We'll pretty much just grab the same old passenger station that we had. We'll do 2 on each end just to make sure we have the capacity. And then we'll get this placed, I'd say right about there. Works pretty well. We'll configure it so we can get our passenger buildings in. It looks like we can actually get them in right along here, which fits almost perfectly with the road. So we don't have to take up a bunch of extra space with that now. And so our bus network in Sacramento is pretty underdeveloped. It's only one loop around the city. We don't even have one going in the reverse direction. So I still think we can cover the whole city with just 2 loops, because the city is still pretty small comparative to the rest of the cities on our map. So we'll delete all of these existing bus stops. And then what we'll do is, starting from here, we'll come up with a pretty logical loop to come around the city. So I think that'll involve having a stop right about here on the corner. And then we'll probably need 1 or 2 up here. It looks like actually we can just keep the one that we had up here, and that will cover all of those buildings. And then coming down from there, we can get 1 bus stop here. We can get another bus stop probably around here. And then we'll want to come up this way. This will get pretty deep into this area, but we're expecting this to fill out pretty well. And then coming back down, we'll stop right about here. And then I think we can just get another stop there, and then maybe 1 more out on this road. And so that should complete our loop pretty well. We'll just have to grab the bus line in here, remove all of these stops, and then make our own loop. So we can have it do something like this, which doesn't look too terrible. The only weird parts may be in here, but I think this will be just fine. We'll leave that. We can manage our vehicles and replace these buses with something a little newer. So I think we'll go with these buses here. Those should work out just fine. So our network should be stable enough for us to just hit play and it'll start to go around and do its thing. But we'll have to find a road depot, which I believe we're still using this one out here. But we'll grab some more of these, and then we'll set these up on a new line, heading in the opposite direction in Sacramento. Alright, so now we'll just make sure our lines are set up correctly and they're on the right terminals. And then I think really that should be it for our bus network in Sacramento. And so the next issue that I think we want to move on to is figuring out how we can get all of these people off of this single road, and maybe see if there's a way we can distribute it a little more evenly around the city. So just by pulling up our destinations layer, it seems like a lot of people are coming in and then coming right and probably heading into this area of the city, since for some reason it seems to just completely drop off once they reach this intersection. Maybe it just gets covered by the buses, but I think that's where a lot of our issues are stemming from. And so while I do think having a connection across this river to one of the neighborhoods in this area would probably be best, I'm really not sure how best to do it in a way that would look good. I suppose we can come off of here and bridge sort of over the farm and end up landing over here and then come up and connect to this road. But I'm not sure how good that would look compared to everywhere else. I suppose we can maybe do a little bit of terrain changing to make it look decent, but maybe let's just give it a go, see what we come up with, and see if we like that first. Yeah, so I think doing a bridge like this doesn't really look that great, so maybe we do have to bring this road down a bit, because I'd like to preserve some of the fields in this farm, but I think maybe we can create an edge here. And so I think maybe a solution like this works a little bit better, where we have this road come down alongside the farm and then sort of bridges over much closer to ground level. I think I like this. It keeps the bridge more low profile. We don't end up with any more large bridges than we need. And then we'll just have to figure out how we get our way over and connect to this road. Alright, so I think to connect up this road, we are going to flatten out a good portion of this so that we bring some of this terrain height over. We'll increase the brush size and smooth it out so we get sort of this little bump out, and we'll have to sort of slowly raise all this up. So maybe we can do something more like that. We'll bring that over a bit more, smooth it out yet again, and so this way the slope up to that road is a lot more gradual, and we can pretty much just slowly wind this road over, and it won't look too bad or out of place along this way. Alright, so now we have this connection. We can take a look here and see some of our traffic is slowly shifting over. Now, the goal, as with all the connections we make, we don't want to drive all of the demand off of this road, but we do want to take a good chunk away from it so that it can relieve the pressure on this roundabout and this bridge here. And so now I think really a lot of it's just going to be a waiting game at this point. We'll see how the demand builds here and what the numbers sort of settle at. And then we'll see if this traffic starts to clear from this connection. But hopefully this fixes it and we can finally be done with this area for now. But of course we won't know that for sure until we just let time do its thing. So let's move on to checking on our line rates. So now that we're looking at our lines, I think one thing we might actually change in this area to maybe further help out more is add a stop at this main station here so that our buses are able to get people around these cities a little bit more easier. I know the whole idea of connecting to this station here was to get them to the train to get connected to the rest of the map, but I think if we just simply add an extra stop here before it stops at this stop, I don't think there really should be much of an issue doing that. And so we'll also do this on the one going in the other direction, so this one will then stop here as well, and I think that should all work out just fine then. And so first, before we take a look at some other things, let's look at our line statistics and see if there's anything big here that needs addressing, such as First of all, these planes. So let's go find this. This is our plane line from Montgomery to Sacramento, and there's pretty much almost no demand on this line from what I can tell, because this plane just left Montgomery empty. And then if we come over to Sacramento, there is 2 people waiting on that line, but really I think at this point we've got enough numbers to understand that we maybe only just need 1 plane going back and forth for that trip. So then the next line that we'll take a look at is what seems to be this cargo hub to Mesa line. This could just be a glitch with the finances, but as we can see here, it's actually a little hard to make out if we're even averaging a profit on this line, as sometimes it jumps up really high and then sometimes we don't get any money at all. So let's take a look at these trains. So we can take a look here and see that it's pretty much full of resources. So the issue isn't that it is running full. I think maybe it could just be that we need another train on this line so we get more consistency, because our frequency is 11 minutes, which I don't think is too terrible, but I think even on a line like this, our frequency is still 5 minutes. So perhaps we can manage these vehicles. We'll edit them, and maybe we'll get rid of 1 or 2 box cars. That'll help the train run a lot better. And then when we duplicate this, the resources will be split a little bit more evenly. And then I think since we did make these shorter, we can probably get rid of 1 of the engines on each of these, and that should save us a lot more money. So we'll roll with it, we'll see what happens. If we take a look here, the power rating for this train, it can still get up to its top speed on flat slopes, but high slopes it really gets limited. As you can see, this hill probably being the steepest that it would go over is going about 40 miles an hour, so I don't think that's too terrible in the long run. I mean, if we click the train again and take a look at the frequency, we did get that down to 7 minutes, which is probably a significant improvement for the city of Mesa, so we'll just have to keep an eye on that. So then coming back to our lines, we looked at the cargo hub to Mesa line, we looked at this plane. Next is our Mesa to Montgomery line, which this line I'm surprised isn't getting used slightly more often. We are carrying 48 passengers, which isn't too bad, but I think the rate for a line like this is probably way too large. So let's sell maybe 10 of the vehicles. So we can see our frequency go down to 96 seconds, which is probably a lot better. We do want to keep the frequency at a decent amount so that we don't sort of break the connection between the cities by having too long of time between buses coming into the bus stations. But hopefully now each bus when it leaves will at least be carrying 1 or 2 people. While that won't make us any money, it will help offset our costs a bit more. And then I also think that this line got pretty heavily devalued when we added this airport and we got our Montgomery to Mesa plane line going. So honestly, we could probably even afford to sell even more buses, since this isn't even the fastest form of transportation between these cities. And so taking a look at next on our lines, we have our Stockton to Sacramento resource line, which I think this one's still sort of getting integrated. We did just have boats drop in some resources. Our rate is pretty high, but because of the line being so long, I guess we don't even really need that 900 rate. I think we just need it at about 700, it looks like, based on the supply of all these. So I suppose just to sort of save some money, we'll sell 5 of these trucks, and that brings our rate down to the low 800s. Maybe we sell like 3 more, 740. I'd say that's probably about where I'm happy with. It looks like these boats are starting to come in a little bit more full as they split the resources between Stockton and Sacramento. So that's promising. I think really what that means then is where we're lacking from is our input of resources into the cargo hub. Because I know for sure having 2 cities worth of resources, these boats would be leaving almost entirely full to serve that demand, and that's just not happening here. So I think we're going to need to start connecting more industries to the cargo hub yet again. So now taking a look at some more lines, it seems to just be a lot of our bus lines, and these are sitting in the low 1 to 2 millions, so those aren't anything too big. Eventually we do want to get those to be losing us less money, but I think right now I'm prioritizing them solving our traffic issues over it actually being profitable at the moment, so I'm okay with losing money on those lines. And it looks like actually we were able to get all of our losses on our lines under 10 million. So I think that's pretty okay with where we're at, especially on the other end where we're getting close to 50, 60 million for a lot of lines here. Really just this one train alone probably covers all of our lines that are losing us money, so there's nothing really too big to stress about that. So now, as we saw earlier in the video, in here at the Downey train station, we do have a lot of people waiting to get on some of these trains. So this Downey to San Jose line has a lot of people. If we come into San Jose is very full in terms of trains here. So I think first let's start with our Downey to San Jose line. This should be easily solved by maybe another train. We could even just add more cars to it. So we can replace the cars with these, get an extra car in there, and I believe we should still be good if we select one of our existing trains and take a look at the power rating. For this passenger train, we will want to keep that as high as possible, and it looks like the numbers are almost exactly the same, so we'll just modify those and hope that that's able to now keep up with the demand for that line. So then coming down to the Downey end of it, our Downey to Jackson line has been doing pretty well. Let's just see if maybe there's a better train with more capacity. And it really doesn't seem like there's one with a better capacity than what we're currently running. So we'll stay with the trains that we currently have. So I believe it's these here. So really it might just end up being a matter of duplicating it and getting a third train on that. So again, we will want to continue to be cautious of our train traffic because we are starting to get quite a few amount of trains running on our main line, especially coming into the Jackson train station. I think coming up pretty soon we're going to connect all of the platforms, and we'll get it set up in a way where hopefully these trains won't be blocking each other as they come into the station. We'll sort of have the main line come in the middle, and so it splits off in both ways, but that's something that we still have to plan out and get ready for. So for now, hopefully we're not holding up any trains, which it doesn't seem like it, besides maybe over on this end, but these seem to be going just fine as they are. And so we won't really see the effects of these trains for a while, as it'll take a bit for those numbers to start dwindling down. I think a lot of it results from our better bus network here in Downey, so that just gets more people in and out of this station at any given moment. But then coming back to San Jose, we have our Jackson to San Jose line still very high in demand. So I'm thinking about just duplicating this, getting another train running on that line. So I do like the trains that we're running on it currently. Let's just check in Jackson the demand coming from Jackson for San Jose. And it looks like our Jackson to San Jose train is our most in demand right now at the station, so I suppose another train is warranted. And then surprisingly, our San Jose to Birmingham line is now making us a good amount of money. It seems like demand has finally started to build up on this line. I think let's see if we have better trains suited for that long distance high-speed line. Alright, so we do have 2 trains that are capable to reach the maximum 186 miles an hour. So I think we'll go with this train as it does get there a little bit quicker. So pretty much anything we can do to reinforce this line, getting as many people onto it as possible. Let's see if we can find one of those, if it just left or if we have one coming in. It looks like we have one coming in right now. So we did lose some capacity, but I think because this line was never really running at full capacity anyway, sort of choosing speed over capacity is a much better option. And so here's one of those trains going pretty close to top speed as it flies past our cargo hub. It looks like it will be reaching at the top speed right around the halfway mark of the line itself. So that's something good to see. So we will be getting sort of the most use out of this train that we can. And so I think that's pretty much going to be it for looking at our lines and upgrading anything. We have so many lines that it's just hard to go through all of them in one sitting, but we did get the ones that needed the most attention. Unfortunately, it looks like traffic has built up again between these 2 cities. So I think at some point off camera I'll try to sort this out. I think this time it might be on Albuquerque's end. We probably need more bus stops here and maybe some restructuring of the road hierarchy in this area of the city. But I'll try to figure that out off camera, and then hopefully we'll be done with this traffic problem that keeps popping up. And so I think that's going to be all that we'll do in this video. So if you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. If you have any suggestions or feedback, leave a comment below. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.